Hey everybody, how you doing? Sorry, just doing something over here. Okay, good. What I wanted to do was show you what I'm sort of asking you to do for the peerScholar assignment. So the first thing I'll mention, as I kind of get stuff ready here, is the peerScholar assignment has 3 steps. The second step and the third step are very different. Second step's about giving feedback to your peers. Third step's about reading the feedback, learning from it, and then potentially revising your work. So I'm not going to talk about those right now. I will have separate instructions when we get to those steps. I'm going to focus on the first step, which is where you actually create the product that we will be giving feedback to, etc. And I'm asking you to go through a bit of a process here. And as I mentioned in the instructions, if you look at it, here's the goals that I'm trying to achieve as an educator. And the biggest one is I want you to think, and I want you to become comfortable accessing science. I've made the argument to you that the scientific process is the process that gives us clear answers about things, about any question we might have. And therefore you should trust science. And if you're looking for the answer to some questions, you should go to science. And so that's what I want you to learn how to do in this assignment. But I'm hoping you're engaging in deep thought, working on your critical thinking, working on your communication skills, your creative thinking as you think about how to do all of this. And I also want you to learn how to use and how not to use AI to support your learning, rather than replacing your learning. You've paid a lot of money to develop as a person, to grow as a person, and part of that means learning how to do things, and sort of developing your mind as you do. Okay, that sounded kind of fancy. So let me kind of say it another way. A lot of assignments we give you, it's very hard as an instructor to give you an assignment that you can't just get AI to do for you. When you get AI to do it for you, you've learned nothing other than how to get AI to do your work for you. Where every time we give you an activity, it's because there's something we really hope you'll learn by going through it the right way. So what I'm hoping to do here is to create an activity that's hard to just make AI to do for you, and in fact one that teaches you a better way to interact with AI as you work on some issue. Okay, so so let me just give you a sense of what I want you to do then. We've got a number of steps here. You see six steps to submitting your doing everything. I'm going to focus on the first 2 mostly steps, but also the third step, get you to the third step, and then we'll talk about it from there. Okay. So I think the best way to do this is just to model it for you, to kind of show you what I have in mind. So the first step is to find an AI of your choosing, if you like, and you don't have to use AI. You can just do this all with Google and stuff like this. I'm going to model it with AI. And what I want you to learn is that you can use AI as a learning tool. And so if there's something in this course that you wished I wish they'd really talk a lot about this is something I'm really interested in. Well, we always touch on things in this course. We just kind of give you a little bit of an idea and then we move on. So this is your chance to kind of go deeper on something. And so I mentioned some issue. Maybe it relates to whether specific animals have self-awareness. How would you know? Maybe it's about children and how their brains develop. Maybe it's about the risk of betting on sports. Maybe it's about human attraction and why certain people find other people attractive. Maybe it's about prejudice. Psychology is so broad, right? There's got to be some topic that you find interesting. So I'm going to pick music, and I'm going to kind of, this is as general as you can say. So maybe I'm interested in music and psychology. So I'm going to Perplexity here. It's just the AI I'm going to play with when I do this. This is a previous search. Let's not worry about that. But let me start up and say, hey, I'm interested in research that connects music and psychology. Now, I really want you ultimately to find a paper that's published in the last 10 years, but maybe you want to start by something like this. Can you let me know some of the issues that researchers are investigating related to this? So first of all, just what are people doing? Okay, and by the way, you can keep this whole transcript. I'd encourage you to keep it. It kind of shows the learning path you've been on. I don't think I'm going to ask you to submit it to me because I don't want to force everybody to use AI. So it's but something kind of related. So here's the first pass. It's doing its thing. This video may take a little while because I'm going to really demonstrate how I think you should do it. So music and psychology. So here we go. Some people are looking at emotion in the brain, how music rewrites the emotional tone of autobiographic memories and alters amygdala hippocampal connectivity during recollection. Wow. Which limbic circuits generate chills and pleasure responses from live or recorded music? So this is kind of cool. That when you're watching music and you get that emotional connection. How tempo, mode, and consonants affect core affect. By the way, this is something Wundt studied in some of the first studies in psychology. But they're continuing to study. Music for mental and physical health. Efficacy of music-based interventions for anxiety, insomnia, and chronic pain. That's kind of interesting. And you see it goes on, right? And so I can say, oh, okay, of all of these things, social connection and identity, how group singing or drumming builds social cohesion. Wow, that's something I'm really interested in. Okay, so maybe I say, wow, you don't have to say these things. Wow, cool. I think I'm especially interested in the research connecting music with social connection. What are the major research studies in that area? I'm especially interested in experiments. So this is me just deciding I want to see experiments, not correlation studies. I'd rather see experiments where something has been manipulated, right? So please highlight any of those. I'm also especially interested in research conducted over the last 10 years. So highlight those as well. Finally, please give me a brief summary of the work within relevant papers. Okay. So notice that what I've done is I've started with this general thing, music and psychology. I've been able to talk with AI and learn what some of the research is and see very specific areas. And then I've found something that's a little more specific, right? Music, how music supports social connection, which is something, again, we're going to be talking about social connection in the course. So notice they're focusing in on the last thing, and look at this, right? Really nice. So here's the years, here's various papers. Now, are they real? We don't know if they're real right now, right? And what did they have? They had weekly group singing versus group yoga. Okay, so this is an experiment where people got together and they either sang together or they did yoga together. And how did they measure things? Self-reported closeness, salivary oxytocin. What's that, by the way? Oxytocin is the neurotransmitter that's released when trust bonds are formed. And trust is a critical part of social connection. So they're measuring actual neurochemical things related to social connection. And cortisol. Cortisol is related to stress. So we would like to see less stress, in some of these situations. So both activities lifted mood, but singing produced significantly greater social connection, closeness, and a 15% rise in oxytocin. Wow, this one's cool. I like this. I'm pretty much happy right now. But you can see there's others. So a lot of people are doing synchronized singing, live string quartet, 12-week group intervention versus waiting list. and they're using the loneliness scale. Choir members showed a 26% drop in loneliness, etc. So look, we've got all of these studies. Okay, and it's highlighting some of them. And so I'm going to say I like this one. Give me the full, please give me the full APA reference on the study by, and who was it? We can even just select it if we want. And this was older adults with Parkinson's. Interesting. Okay. And so off it'll go. And it may even give us a direct link to that study, because a lot of the AI systems are now doing that as a way of letting you know it's not making things up. So, it was right there. There's the formal APA reference, which is one of the things I'm going to ask you to submit, by the way. Here's a link to the article. Let's go. Look, there it is. So this article exists. So the AI was not lying to you. And now you have a copy of that full article. Okay? Now what I would like you to do is read that article. But again, you can sort of have AI help you read that. So can you please give me a 2 or 3 paragraph summary of that article, one that includes the theory. You can try this under investigation, the specific hypothesis tested, the independent and dependent variables, the results, and the implications for any experiment reported, because some of them will report more than one, right? So let's see what it does here. Now, why would you do this? This is not a replacement for reading the paper. I really do want you to read the paper and kind of get comfortable with what it's like, to have a paper like this in front of you and to go through it, just to get a sense of the different sections of the paper, how an experiment is described. And so this is the real, notice, by the way, this is just Toronto Metropolitan University, and this is 2025. This is happening like now, right? This was just released, and that's part of what I want. I don't want you to go look at ancient studies. I want you to find stuff that's happening now. And so if we go back, do we get a summary? Study applied the social synchrony neurohormonal theory, which argues, this is the theory, that making music together drives joint endocrine changes, lower stress hormones, higher affiliate peptides, that in turn enhance pain tolerance and social bonding. The authors predicted that a single 45-minute group session would raise the pain session. So it's really kind of describing, it's giving you a sense of the measures that they completed and giving you a sense of the results. Okay, so this is your high level, and what I would suggest is kind of read that, kind of get a sense, because that's telling you, okay, that's the big picture. But please get in here and read this one as well, and see that connection, right? And get a sense that there's more in this than is that in that summary. But this is, by the way, also a reasonable sized paper. It's not too much for me to have to read and think about. It's got some good data in it. You get to see all the data. There's the discussion, and now we're all the way to the references. So I've got my paper. Okay, so now let me go back to what we just did. Okay, identify some specific issue in psychology that you find especially interesting or relevant to you, and kind of talked about how to do that. learn with technology. That's what I've been doing, right? Trying to figure out, oh, what's there? What's the summary? How does it suggest? Again, I'm going to recommend AI, but you can use Google or whatever if you just want to kind of go on and do it in a more traditional way. It's funny how Google is now the more traditional way. This is what brought me to that specific paper about singing with Parkinson's patients. So I got to that specific paper. Okay, now I have to verify that paper, acquire it, get access and read it. And I use Google Scholar if you want. I didn't have to here, right? Because it linked right to it. So if there's a link right to it, you don't have to use Google Scholar, but just to show you, just to cover that base, when we had the formal reference here, we could have also just say copy the authors. I could go to Google Scholar if you don't know Google Scholar. And I could have put those authors in there. And here's that same paper. And so this is another way to access that paper, right? I can click on that and there I am accessing that paper as well. So whether you go through the Google Scholar or not, that just depends on whether they gave you the nice link. Here they gave us the link right to the paper. Okay, but now again, let me go back to here. Sorry, I'm bouncing all around. We've verified the paper exists. We've got access to it, and we read through it. And I'm also saying here, you can use AI to help you read through it. Make sure you understand, because eventually this is what you have to do. Okay, after all this learning, your task is to create a video. I want you to take your phone, put it somewhere on the wall, whatever, aim it at you. Present to your phone. Okay, give an oral presentation to your phone. Yeah, and so first of all, you probably want to create a script. I call it a script, but what we really want to see is you presenting this research like you know it. Like we really want you to read that paper, think about it, get familiar with that study, and then share it with the class. Tell others what you've learned through your oral presentation. And so, yeah, you want to tell them about the research. And so I kind of lay some things out. This should explicitly lay out things like what was the theory related to the research, what was the specific hypothesis tested, and how was it tested? Is it a full experiment or a correlational study or even an observational study? What variables were manipulated? What were measured? What were the findings? The kinds of things we're asking about. You want to cover all that. You want to describe that experiment. Now, I'm asking you to create a script first, because that's just the obvious way to do it. Sort of figure it out in a written form and then present it. You don't have to say exactly what your script says. Your script is just to guide you when you do your oral presentation, but you'd like to do the oral presentation from the heart, right? Not from the brain, or certainly not from the eyes. You certainly don't want to just read your script. You would rather present that information. And so try to do that as well as you can. Cover a lot of this stuff. Yeah, but here's the thing. But your video should convince me you actually understand the script, that you didn't just generate it with AI blindly, but that you actually worked with AI to understand the paper you're discussing. Okay? That's what we want to see in your oral presentation, that you got it. Because that tells me you thought about it. You put the time, you put the effort, you actually thought about it. You didn't just generate something. And I really want to highlight this. I know when I ask students to put a video of themselves as part of an assignment, there's 50 million bells that go off in their head, worries about all sorts of things. Like, do I seem nervous? Am I good at presenting this? Do I have an accent? Can people understand me well? Etc., etc. Try to put those things out of your mind and try to focus on, just try to imagine, hey, I am here to share this neat research study I just learned about that I think is cool. And just try to do that. Just focus on that. That's what you're going to be assessed on. So you're not going to be assessed about whether you feel nervous or not. You're not going to be assessed about any accent you may or may not have. It's just going to be about, did you show us? Did you describe the experiment in a way we could understand and see the coolness of? Okay. All right. So you produce that video. Then you upload the video to the U of T My Media server, and I've got instructions for you to do that. And then finally you go into peerScholar. There'll be a link right from the course page that brings you directly into peerScholar. So you go right into peerScholar, and I walk you through some steps that you do to submit your video, as well as some other things. So I want the video. I want that formal APA citation, remember? So when we went over here, here's the formal APA citation. So I want that as well, so that we can go see the paper that you're talking about. And I want your script. So dump your script in underneath, paste that underneath. Keep copies of all these things too, by the way. Always good to keep copies of all these things. And then you just save and next. And you're going to see I have some questions, an opportunity to do a survey and stuff like that. But really everything beyond that is sort of optional. You can do it or not. I appreciate it if you do it. I'll explain the value of doing it when we're there. And then you're done. That's it for the first phase. Okay? So, a little bit of a bizarre process I'm asking you to go through, but my hope is, as you now go through the course, if you say, oh, geez, this was a really cool thing we talked about in class, but I'd like to know more, you know how to know more, right? Do the same thing anytime you want. Anytime you want to learn more about psychology, get right to the research, find out what's going on, and know that you've got the best quality information at your fingertips here as you do it. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. That's your task for now, to get these things submitted by Monday. And then I will have another set of instructions for step 2 and steps 3. Step 2 and 3 are much easier as you go through. This is the hard work phase. Okay, I'm going to shut up there.